The last but not least, we thought we'll have a totally different type of content. I mean, there have been a lot of type of content which have been very successful, medical, which we talked about a lot today. Another area which has been very successful in mobile apps is kids content. So Richesh, he is CTO at Ruckus Media Group. So interestingly, very different mixture where that's all they do. They have no print, no other kind of product. Their only product is apps. So I thought it'd be good to just see from their perspective, what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Can you hook your computer back up? Yeah, presentation. All right. While they set up
you can use.
All right. Yeah, I can speak loud enough. So this is a Ruckus Reader. It's a product made by a company I work for, Ruckus Media Group. This is a purely, one of the differences I think, like Gurvinder said, between everyone else here on the panel and our product is we don't have a website, we don't have a print content. We are actually a company started by the president, ex-president and chairman of Simon & Schuster, and he essentially did not want to do print. So this is a very, sort of an effort to subvert print publishing and just go straight into mobile next level. And I have a bit of an education technology background. I've been in education technology since 2006, and I've seen. And I'll go through this. And I'll go through this in my presentation. But I've just sort of seen the progression and where it's headed. And I think this is sort of where a lot of new platform-based apps are headed. And it's not just static content. It's not existing content. It's actually new content and adaptive content. So I'm going to start with the demo because it's always fun to see things work. And hopefully it won't crash. But one thing, everyone here on the panel said something about offline abilities, and that's a big plus. You need it. There's three modes actually, which is something that we've found out painfully. There's an online mode where you have actual connectivity, and the device tells you that it's connected, right? So there's the Wi-Fi connection or a 4G connection or 3G connection on your device. Perfect situation, right? Second is offline capability. Airplane mode is probably the best way to describe it. Just no connectivity. The device immediately, as you ask for web connection, it says, nope, I don't have one. I'm in airplane mode, or I just don't have anything to give you. Therefore, you just go into offline mode. There is a third mode. This is the worst mode to be stuck in. It is the online but no bandwidth mode. Okay, what this means is that in a conference hall like this, where everyone's on the Wi-Fi, the hotel conference or hotel Wi-Fi can't service every single iPad and device here. So what it does is the device says, I'm online, and you're trying to make calls to your web servers. It's not going to do it because there's just no bandwidth to actually service your request. And you really do need to solve that as a problem because it does tend to have really bad user experience because if you just code for online offline, you're just going to end up just upsetting the user, and they're just going to leave your app. So this is online right now. I'm signed in. This is a we call it powered by Ruckus Reader. We have this is a Crayola app. We work with big brands, Crayola, My Little Pony, Transformers, SeaWorld. So this is a Crayola app. We just have books for kids ages 3 to 8, and so in Crayola's case, kids can create a new story. I don't have audio.
Read the story. See if you can find these objects hidden in the pictures. When you spot one, tap it, and you'll win a word.
Right. So these are not just ebooks.
It's picture day at the zoo. But where are all the animals?
Right. These are for younger kids, 3 years old. We have our own proprietary format, which is similar to EPUB. It's XML based, but it's for us and us only. We can do EPUBs also with this platform, but this is purely our interactive iReaders is what we call them. You have a menu. If you have kids 3 to 8 and they've played with your iPads, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with these apps. So there's quite a few of them out there. We're probably one of the largest developers of big branded versions, but there are quite a few others as well. So you have sort of a navigation bar and simple slide navigation.
Tap the object you want to pick.
So we have activities built into these things. So, as you're reading, it's not just a reading experience and learning experience, but there's also a learning experience. So here,
what should elephant wear?
So, what should the elephant wear? I'm going to give the elephant a goggle.
Tap a crayon to pick a color. Color the goggles.
Yeah, I like green. You know what? Yeah. Okay. And so the actual story.
Look for a sparkle and tap it. A picture will pop up.
So
Listen to the.
Look, he says, my brown goggles are on top of the shelf.
right. So if I had picked a hat that was purple, it would have changed to purple hat. The object actually shows up in the top right. There's another activity here. Kids are actually playing. They can say goggles. So it's word recognition happening. So these are if you're familiar with the core standards at schools, this is adopted by 48 states. This is the new learning standard for K-12. It's considered Common Core or core standards. You can hear different words. And these activities are based on those. Oh, let me move over here. Can you guys hear me? Okay. These activities are based on the core standards. So you get to play it, and then at the end of the game, or end of the book, after you've read through the book, you get your brown goggles, and wait, let me finish. So you have all these different activities. I can put the crown, and you can obviously share this with family, friends. These are kids sharing, so they don't get to email anyone in the world. It's COPA compliance, which is a child online protection policy act. But then they'll email your parents, and the parents can send it out to whoever and things like that. So there's quite a bit of functionality. And then one of the things we implemented technology-wise was the ability to switch between apps. So now each one of these apps is a separate app. So if you go back to the deck of the iPad, the Springboard, there's different apps. So we actually power these apps. We don't necessarily sit in front of it. So we don't have a Kindle or a Nook reader. We actually sit behind the brands because we don't want to, if you're in the App Store and you search for Transformers and it shows up with the Ruckus Reader app, you're not going to download it because it doesn't ring as to what you were looking for. You were looking for Transformers. So what we do is we actually let the brands have their own name and their own app, and then we sit behind it. So in this case, I'll go into Transformers. And then once again, this is the kids section. We obviously have the library, the bookshelf, which is where you can go to any of the books. Let's read this one. So one of the things you notice between Crayola and this one is there's similarities here. This is a user interface that looks very similar to the Crayola book. We actually use the same platform. We actually have written our own platform that lets us do this. And this really helps us scale. We can probably release an app within 3 weeks to 4 weeks, which is with the activities. So everything is platform and templated. So I'll give you a quick example of the template from the technology perspective.
Look for a sparkle.
So once again, there's the sparkle thing.
Quiet day at the Autobot.
Same thing.
Basketball.
Right, you get to select basketball. We saw this activity. And the other one was totally skinned to work with Transformers. And then another activity here. And we have game moments within. So this is one of the game moments. So the question said,
help Bumblebee spell portal.
Right, so we're going to help Bumblebee spell portal. This is a game. You're just dragging left to right. You're looking for the words that make portal. Obviously, you catch AL. Right, so this is one example. We can really quickly see if I can get to My Little Pony without crashing. There we go. I'm going to try to find.
Look for a sparkle and tap it. A go.
There we go. We just saw an activity.
Look for a sparkle. When a letter appears, goes.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the same exact game. Alright, so we just played a game at Transformers.
Drag the basket across the stone.
So this is the exact same game, running exact same engine. We just changed the skin of it to make it work with My Little Pony. So anyway, so that's kind of the front end experience of our app. Really quickly show you what happens in the back end is we're actually tracking against course. This is the student I played with. These are actual real-time metrics of what's happening within the app. So this is one of our test accounts. It spent 2,164 minutes in the last 7 days. Everyone's using the account, so obviously this is why it's high. You can go to phonics and word recognition. You can see what there's sort of like analytics behind, and it's, the kids have no clue that they're actually being tested. I mean, they could. I mean, as they get older, they'll realize that's happening. But hopefully, these are all offline capable apps. These are apps that that can be played with in the back of the van. So this is a totally different paradigm for the mobile, right? We're not supplement. We have no other footprint. We are purely mobile. Like I said, background in education technology. Pre-2007, mobile was non-existent in education. I mean, it was almost, they were still trying to figure out web. I mean, they weren't even looking at mobile as a solution for anything other than emergency. I mean, that was like the only thing I saw that was pre-2007. You're on a campus and you want to notify the campus police. I mean, that was the only thing that you could do with the mobile device. 2007-09 is like the arrival of the iPhone. Increased development for supplemental functionality, course registrations, grades. You saw maps and things like that showing up. 2009 to, I should say 2011, but 2009 to 2011, you saw more static content come up. Communication started coming up. People could message each other. Video and audio content for lectures and things started showing up. And then just some basic interactive content. Like I think there was a biology app that you could rotate the models and things like that. There was things like that happening. 2012 plus, you're actually seeing learning platforms being developed by all the big publishers as well as smaller publishers. I mean, McGraw-Hill has one of the biggest global learning platform coming out called the Connect platform, which is their K-12 platform. We're obviously in this fray. Distant learning, like University of Phoenix, actually bringing their content onto the device because they're realizing if people are willing to do distant learning, they don't want to sit in front of a computer. You're someone who works the night shift somewhere. You want to be able to do it on your iPad if you can. So that's kind of there's lots of adaptive content as well. Like one of the examples I showed was the Crayola app. You can choose things and it changes. I mean, you can totally take that to SAT level. When I worked at Kaplan, I worked on an SAT adaptive learning platform, which actually changed and got harder and harder as you went through your progression. And the way you did that, you played with an activity, and the activity figured out how much you were learning, and then it would tailor the rest of the content to actually force you to learn something that you were not good at. So lots of things like that are happening as well. A lot of things I'm going to talk about are actually covered by everyone here, so I'm going to go really fast. So I already went through this. We have real-time metrics assessment engine based on core standards. We're brand-led, supposed to be, they call it edutainment also, although people don't really like that term. We have ebooks as well. So we have deals with, like Houghton Mifflin, HarperCollins, lots of ebooks for kids that are on our system as well. The challenge there is to separate yourself from iBooks and Kindle and everyone else who's doing ebooks. So our content is accessible. So we're working on content that, even though you're reading Curious George goes to the baseball game, we can interject activities to actually make them accessible. We're also looking at videos, things like that. So there's quite a bit of content available for children. I went through this. I showed how the progress report and analytics work. So what's our technology? We're iOS only right now, and I'll get into why we're not on other platforms. There's actually, every 3 months we go back and look at it and say, do we want to go to the platforms? And then we come back and say no. So iOS only, we use Cocos 2D framework, which is a iPhone, iPad framework. Our platform is XML based. I don't have a video that I can show. There was a video I made earlier. I can essentially, if I have all the assets, art assets, I can generate a book in 4 days, which is, with the amount of interactivity we have, that's a fairly strong platform to be able to support that. We have a total of 15 activities that can be skinned in any way and made into available to different books, and so quite a bit of a platform play there. And it requires no coding, so it's actually, I can hand it to data entry folks and they can just input data into an editor or into an XML. They can generate it. We're a startup. We're running on Amazon Web Service infrastructure, purely cloud-based. We have desk.com for support. It's kind of cool. I know a lot of people here hinted on feedback and support. Desk.com is it's a Salesforce.com product. Your support emails automatically become cases, and then you can just handle them like a traditional case. You can have agents across the world. We have people sitting all over the world who can actually answer those emails, and you don't have to have someone's inbox being used. It's actually a full-blown system that just tracks all the email. We also have it connected to Google Voice, so we can actually, you can pick up a phone and call it, and it will transcribe and create a case ticket for us immediately. So we don't lose track of our customers. I mean, it is a single star review in the App Store is the biggest killer. And it's like a GPA. Once you get a bad grade, there's no way to bring it back up, right? So once you get a couple of single stars, you're done. You will have a 4-star review if that's best. Even if like you get 200 5-star, you're just not going to win that battle at that point. So you want to avoid single stars or bad reviews on App Store. And most App Store reviews will be negative at first because those are the people willing to write. You'll get lots of ratings because people just hit the 5 stars, but you'll get lots of ones, and then people will actually go and write about you because they're actually frustrated. So analytics, once again, to everyone. We use SendGrid for bulk email, so we send emails. Like I said, those reports I showed, they go into email as well. So every week you get an email from us. We use technology called SendGrid. Analytics, there's 2 types of analytics. There's the pure app analytics, Flurry, Google Analytics. You've heard these guys talk. It tracks the basic data, right? Opening of a session, user path, events. You can track sort of what's going on with your app and how your users are interacting with that app. And then we track separate analytics, which is where we do the assessment. So we have a very deeper business logic analytics happening, which lets us generate those graphs I showed and track time spent and things like that. So you should do that. You should definitely think about how you can leverage these existing SDKs, but then you need to figure out what your business needs, and more likely these homegrown SDKs or prepackaged SDKs don't necessarily provide that. So you need to figure out there might be things you want to know that is not accessible. One of the biggest things we want to know that's not accessible in Flurry or anywhere is the ability to link all our apps. Like we have 9 different apps, let's say. I want to be able to link them and say, what's my user flow? Am I seeing them go from one to the other and things like that? That's not really doable in some of these prepackaged SDKs. Advantages of iOS, it's a mature commerce platform. It is, if you're trying to make money on the mobile platform, which I think everyone here said they were, you have to have a mature commerce platform. The Android platform doesn't have it. The Microsoft doesn't have it. And pretty much anything else out there it's not really being used. Disadvantages, obviously, 30% revenue share with Apple. Review process is a black box. Apple can remove an app at any time, and then discoverability. The only way your apps are discoverable are through iTunes. It's either they show up in featured list, and those are also black box. Like there's no, other than the top rank, if you've seen iTunes, other than the top paid and top free, there's no way to really tell what kind of numbers it takes to climb those. There's no really way to tell what kind of number, or how do you get onto like the featured list or the what's hot list. Those are all staff generated. Other platforms, I kind of bundle these up, Android, Microsoft. I mean, you've already heard this enough today. You get faster time to market. Like there's no review process for the most part. Microsoft has one, but it's really straightforward. Nook has one, it's really fast. Apple's probably the longest and probably the most scrutinized. You also sometimes have deeper API access, like in Android 3.1 you can access camera. You really can't do some of those things. There are some things in iOS that you're not allowed to do in terms of hardware and core operations. The only way you can have a background data connectivity is if your app is running in the background. There's no other way. But Apple can do that. Apple can do that with the newsstand. It doesn't have to be running, but their core operations allow them to do that. So there are some advantages in this. I mean, there are some advantages to other platforms. Disadvantage is, the biggest one is hardware and software fragmentation. And I think we wanted to talk more about this later. Essentially, it's the Samsung Android app or phone has a resolution difference of 20 pixels from the HTC Android phones, right? You're done. Like that's it. That's 2 separate apps. Like you cannot play your SD. I mean, there is no percentage you can apply to make that work in those 2. They're going to look different or they're going to feel different. If you really want that experience, you need to now generate 2 separate art set, especially apps like ours where we have to, have interactivity and make it look pretty, we can't do that on those platforms. And then the software fragmentation, a whole other ballgame. I mean, HTC's version of Android looks different than Motorola's, than Samsung's, and just we're not going to be there. Piracy, the other big issue. We're trying to make money on the mobile platform. There's no way. They'll crack your code. They'll bypass the in-app purchase mechanism. Most of the platforms don't even have in-app purchase mechanism. Microsoft doesn't have it. Google just came out with it recently, but it's not really that vetted or controlled. So there's poor commerce support on those platforms. Mobile web, again, this is encompassing HTML5. Faster time to market, multiple platform support, but his not code ones run anywhere, everywhere. I mean, I think Drew hit it, already. It's just like writing another, imagine, it's actually much worse than coding for the major browsers. And I know Drew, sort of emphasized how Apple really supports HTML5. They do. They really are biggest supporter of HTML5. So is Google. But they're also the slowest moving HTML implementers. So their Safari and Google Chrome are the two browsers that are the worst performing HTML5 interpreters out there. So you can create an HTML5 app, but you can't really rely on performance of it and things like that. If you're watching TV lately, you've seen Microsoft's new ad on IE9, and it has like a cut the rope game going on in the ad, and you can see it. It's really cool. But that's what they're targeting. Is IE9 is faster than Chrome and Safari. And I personally think the reason these guys aren't moving fast enough is because they don't want to lose the native app business. Because if you make HTML5 as good as your native app, you essentially have a market segmentation that you don't really want to deal with. So they are supporters, and they may not be. That could just be my conspiracy theory stuff going on in my head, but it seems like that's the way. User preferred native app. You want to go to LinkedIn.com, or do you want to open the LinkedIn native app? I think if you have it, then open it, or Facebook even. There's just something about the mobile experience on the web or the browser is just not that good, and not mature enough for games. I mean, there's just not enough physics or activities that we can do on these mobile platforms. Really quickly, free versus paid. Free, you can get high number of downloads, but low conversion possibility. And I think some people here earlier were saying this. People may not want to pay. Like, they get a free content, and we give away one free book, and the other two are paid. Conversion is really, really suspect, because people get the one book and they're happy with it, and they're like, I don't need the other two. Like, you make it really hard. If we had just charged, let's say, 99 cents for our apps off the top, before you even could download a Crayola app, given that we're the only Crayola app in the App Store, we would have probably gotten more money up front, but that's, in the long run, that's not a business model. Like, you can get 50,000 downloads at 99 cents. No VC is going to fund you for that, because that's just not enough money. Your hope is that you can show conversion, you can show like consistent repeatability of business coming back to your apps. In-app currency models work best. So instead of trying to open content, unlock new, I think Drew was saying they use plates as their sort of in-app currency model. You'll see a lot of things like coins and credits being used, like the Zynga poker app. Like, you buy credits and you can use it. Most apps are really doing well with the concept of coins and credits and in-app currency. The free apps compete with the secondary app market, and what I mean by this is, if you're a free app, you're competing with Kindle and Skype and iBooks. I mean, you're competing with the guys for whom this is not the number one business, right? For them, this is secondary. This is free. This is an addition to something else they've already offered. And that's a very hard place to be, because you're never going to beat the download numbers to hit the top charts for Kindle or for iBooks or something like that. Free ones, user expect ads. Paid, you get revenue from day one. Apple actually favors paid apps in the App Store. If you notice, the top paid box is above the fold in iTunes. If you go to any of the categories, the paid is always clicked. So even if you're looking at what's hot, the paid apps are always shown first. I mean, I know it sounds like, well, that's simple, but actually the conversion clicks are so much higher It's really hard for me to sometimes actually look at these analytics and actually go, really, does that make a difference? And you look at the numbers and it makes a huge difference. People are lazy. I mean, it's just the way it is. You look at the apps and you're looking at the what's hot and you're like, all right, let me go through this list before I go to the free version. I mean, unless you're actively looking for free stuff, you're not actually switching those toggles, and Apple counts on you to not do that. Different category within App Store charts. Your top paid app. If you look at the top paid apps, some of them are like unrecognizable because they're just one-off mom and pop shops who are actually writing code and we're selling it for 99 cents. You're not going to see a Skype in there competing with downloads, or you're not going to compete against a Kindle or someone like that. So lessons learned for us was you got to launch it ASAP. I mean, without bugs, obviously, but if you got a lightest version, the simplest thing you can launch without anything. We launched our first version back in September of last year, which is very simple without a platform, and we got quite a bit of metrics that we could use from there. There's a difference between standalone apps and server integrated apps. What I mean by this is, like, some people here mentioned they downloaded 1.53 gigs onto your iPad. That's a pure, like standalone encompassing. You don't need connectivity. You don't need to have any sort of. You could use it, but your experience is there without it. A server integrated apps like ours actually is communicating back and forth with the server. It's a totally different architecture and application design to deal with an app like that. Implement a platform. If you're writing a one-off like cut the rope, you don't need a platform. They probably do, because given Angry Bird, they've probably come up with a platform to figure that out. But if you're doing publishing and you're creating new content, it probably makes sense to have your own format or leverage a format that works. I would suggest EPUB, but I wouldn't suggest EPUB just because it's not there yet. EPUB 3 is actually pretty good. It has activities built in. But from what I'm hearing, listening to all the committees and who are ratifying it, I mean, they're leaving it, totally open up to the interpreters to figure out how they want to implement certain functionality. You're back to the same ballgame. I mean, it will work on iPhone, but it won't work on Nook or somewhere else. So I'm not sure it's really there yet. Plan for weekly releases. So we plan for weekly releases. We have a version out. We try to have a version every week. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks, but you have to plan. Like Apple takes 7 days, so that's 2 weeks already that you're going to be before your product goes out. And there are always going to be bugs. There's always going to be things you're fixing, but the stickiness comes from people getting those update notifications and like push notifications saying, hey, we've got some new stuff for you. You really do want that. QA cannot be an afterthought. I mean, everyone's gone through this. Users have no tolerance for crashes. I'm always surprised, like growing up in technology, like when a browser didn't load and you got a 404, you hit a refresh button. You even gave it like 3 or 4 tries before you said, all right, stop using this. Apps, nope. The first time it crashes, you're done. Your app will get deleted faster than you can say. Track user behaviors and update app accordingly, right? Once again, metrics. We use Slurry to track user paths. So we have enough analytics built in to say, okay, you start the app and then you make 3 clicks to get to the book. Well, can we make that shorter? Can we make it to 2 clicks or 1 click? And those are the types of things we get to tweak every other week. Remove payment obstacles. The first version we released, we had an overlay. So you clicked on a button that said buy, and then it popped up and it said, you really want to buy? And then you clicked on buy, and then Apple pops up and says, do you really want to buy? You got like 4 clicks before you actually pay us. You lost the customer after like the 2nd click, so you got to get rid of that. No confusing messaging. Apple is funny. I mean, I was watching Drew's presentation. I don't know how they got away with, and even Pam, I don't know how they got away with some of this stuff, but they've gotten away with some stuff that Apple killed us on. 50 plates for registering. You can't give away content for registration. Like that's one of their bylines now. You can't give something that's in the app purchasable for free by asking for information. That's something that they've really harped on. Or you can't link to a ACS mobile. I don't know how that's linking to a mobile website where you can pay for it. I mean, we got dinged on that. So I mean, there's like I said, it's a black box. Some apps make it through, some apps don't. Apple has really random reasonings for why they let some things go and some things don't. So really just got to be careful. And I did the demo already. So that's it.
longer session on Q&A. But any questions on Drew or Richesh?
Yeah, we can answer it together because I think we're probably more technical, like Ravinder said.
Yes, please.
For us, I guess it makes total sense to iterate, reiterate. How about content being managed? Is it the content people iterating? Is it technology? How is that actually coming to fruition?
Yeah, there's probably multiple answers. It depends on the app, really. I mean, if content changes often enough, you really don't have to worry about iteration because that gets handled for you, right? Like if you've got a newsstand app and you've got a journal in newsstand and that content is constantly changing on a weekly or monthly basis, we don't worry about that. We don't submit newsstand apps because the app is constructed in such a way that when new content is available, it's automatically downloaded. And then the users get the notification in iTunes and the badge shows up and all that. If you're talking about an app like the other one I showed, Netter, with the human skull, that's fixed content, right? So when we iterate a version of Netter, and like I said, we released it last September, we've already done, 6 or 7 versions, which, I mean, Netter's a fantastically complicated app, so that actually is a lot of iterations in only a few months. But we iterate based on features and functionality. So because the content doesn't change until like a new human ear gets developed, the content's pretty much going to be the same until the next version of the book comes out. So it's a mix, and it really does depend on the app. But I see your point. The question is, what can you iterate on? You can't just make stuff up, right? You've got to have some reason to release a new version of the app. And to tell you the truth, sometimes if we don't have anything, we will take all of our minor bug fixes that we never got into one of the previous releases, and we'll fix all those tiny little issues, any small performance enhancements we can make, and we'll release that, and we'll call it a maintenance and stability release.
Oh, and by the way, if you have a release like that, you really need to start looking at another app because you've pretty much done everything you can to that app. I mean, I don't think you can ever say that you've not had major features planned. You might do a minor release at some point just to fix it, but yeah. I mean, if it's doing well and you've not given up on the app, you're iterating, you're adding new things. I mean, it could be content, then you're building a platform that supports it, or if it's actual functionality, then you want to iterate, you want to make things better. People, your customers are going to tell you what to make better. But if you've done two minor releases in a row with just minor bug fixes, that app's not doing so well.
Any other questions? I think one of the areas we thought we going to touch base on was that I heard from a lot of people two big areas. One is, as you said, discoverability is a big problem. I mean, there are zillions of apps out there. How do you get your app to out there in terms of marketing? Maybe I think Pam can touch base on that. And I think another area I felt was as we talk about more and more apps having some kind of back-end connectivity. I mean, all the journal content, for instance, sits somewhere today. I mean, you're working with one of the content aggregators. But how does the app get the content? What do you have to do in terms of a back-end perspective? So maybe we have 5 minutes. Maybe we can quickly touch base on that. Pam, talk from a marketing perspective, what all things needs to be done?
From a marketing perspective, we had a unique situation in that we knew who our audience was, relatively captive, and we could reach out to them fairly easily. So for our release, we did kind of a multi-prong approach. We coincided our releases with a major event. We hosted our own ACS conference. So we coincided it with that. We had a presentation. We did email blasts. We also promoted it on our website. We also promoted it within our magazine. Anywhere that we already had a advertising option, we took advantage of that. And we found with CNN or ACS Mobile, they did this concerted blast all at once to email blast, everything all in one day, a blitz. And they actually hit one of the top 10, which is unusual for a specialized app like that. And we were all very proud of ourselves that day. And it only lasted one day. But that sort of approach, you have to really, I know everyone's saying release weekly and all that sort of stuff, and that gets you visibility. But at the same time, if you can coordinate it with big events, make it like a real production, that just gets people who might not have looked at it before visually interested.
So, Richesh, do you want to touch base on, from, I think a lot of people have that, how do they get the content connected with the app?
Sure. So, I think the best way for us, when we first started looking at our content and figuring out how do we get this, working with the platform, we came up with an XML format that was designed specifically for us, and then we were able to use web services to sort of communicate with the device. One of the biggest challenges was the offline capability. So our platform actually, does local calls, actually keeps everything, all the data into a local database, like Drew was saying earlier. And then whenever it finds connectivity, it actually makes that call and submits all the data. So if you're online, it'll do it right then and there, but if you're offline, it'll just keep storing data. So that's a bit of a design in terms of having what's called a local cache, and that helps you, limit, interruption in user experience, but also allows you to really have data going back and forth between the server. So a local cache-based web service calls is what our platform does, but I'm pretty sure that's what most other ones are looking at as well.
Yeah, at the highest level, all the app really is doing is, when it's running, it knows where its content is coming from. It's in some way, shape, or form embedded in the app. So the app just makes a call out to that server, and that server responds with a zip file, in most cases, that contains all the content. So the app downloads a zip file from its server, and then it extracts a zip file, and there's your new content. Highly oversimplified, and maybe you guys don't need that oversimplification, but at the end of the day, that's what's going on. It's not functionally different from you logging onto a website and clicking a link and downloading a zip file of family pictures. Right. It's essentially what's going on behind the scenes with the app. Yeah, and the biggest issue is, sorry.
No, go ahead, finish.
Because I start going crazy.
No, that's fine.
The biggest issue is, where is that content hosted? Like, what server out there is going to house that zip file so when you're ideally 300,000 users all want to download this zip file at the same time. So, there's a couple of options. You can go to your IT guys and you can say, listen, I've got this app coming out in a couple weeks. I'm looking at a couple 100,000 users. Can you build me a server and give me a static IP address? And I need it to be backed up, and I need 5 nines availability, and I need, failover, and I need it to scale. There's no way. It wouldn't happen in a small IT shop, much less a large IT shop, which is why you find a lot of people going to the cloud. Probably almost everyone here, in some way, shape, or form, has services running in the cloud. So what's that mean? All that means is you're contacting Amazon and you're saying, look, I know you got a whole bunch of servers sitting out there doing nothing. Let me pay you a couple bucks a month. Give me the name of the server. Let me host all my zip files on your server. That's cloud services. You're just borrowing a server that's out there connected to the internet. You're putting your zip files on it, and that's where the app fetches its content from.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think I was going to add in terms of cloud, we launched a month and a half ago, and we've had close to 5 million user sessions. And we were on the Today Show like a couple of weeks ago, and immediately, so our servers can handle on Amazon, a decent load, and we were able to do that. But then we got featured, in a bunch of different publications and PR marketing, and it was like a massive spike in user sessions for us. And like I said, if you had an internal IT team, not going to handle it. Those servers are going to crash. The experience is bad. Using something like Amazon, it auto-fired like 3 new servers, got them up and running, and then just handled the load, and then it shut down. And the cost of being able to serve that many more calls was literally $72 extra, per month. So you don't have to have 17 servers running and paying thousands of dollars. Our infrastructure cost goes anywhere, depending on load, from $250 a month, which is handling right now about 4 to 5 million a month, to it spikes to maybe 400 or something. It's a fairly lean cost, and that happens without us even waking up, and it just does it on its own. So you definitely need to look into how auto scaling can help you, and it's initially the cost does seem like a lot, but it's in the long run it pays for itself 10 times over.
Okay, thanks. I don't want to be the one standing between you and the lunch, so I know we're already a few minutes over, so I would like to thank all the speakers on the panel. They did a great job, and I want to thank you as well.